There we go. And so, folks, I want to introduce you to Ronke Osipitan. Ronke, what year did you graduate from Colony?
2015.
Almost 6 years ago?
Yeah.
No, it wasn't that long. Oh my goodness.
Years,
yeah. Well, yeah, time flies. So Ronke was one of my exceptional physics students back in 2015. She really was. She was such a hard worker. I remember that. And you did really well. And she went on and you did your bachelor's at SUNY.
Yeah.
And her master's. Yeah, and she just graduated with her master's degree last May. And so we've been advertising that she was a graduate student at University of Albany. She is not. She's a working girl now. And so I'll let Ronke explain what she does. She was a computer science major, and now she's a software engineer. So I'll turn it over to you.
All right. Yeah, it's honestly great to be here. My time at Colony was great, and I had many great teachers like Miss Famoso. And as we just mentioned, I finished in 2015. And then I went to Stoney Brook, which is in Long Island. That's also a SUNY school, and graduated there in 2018. And then did my master's in computer science and graduated in 2020 of May. And so now I'm working full time as a software engineer at a company called Centrix. And if you haven't heard of Centrix, the main goal of all of their products is to allow people to be productive from wherever they are. So, especially in times like this, it's not always convenient to work in the office. And so Citrix's products will let you work from home or wherever, the library, it could be in another room, but still in the office, whatever works best for the employee. And so how we're working right now, actually, because most of us are still working remotely, we're using the Citrix products. And so I get to access my work machine directly from my home here in Albany. So it's actually very convenient. And so I can access my files and all that stuff. And the team that I'm on directly is called Endpoint Management. And what we do is help other companies and institutions to manage their devices for their employees and students. And so we were just talking and saying how Colony has a laptop program now where students can have their own laptops or a laptop from Colony. And even though this is a spread out thing where every student has their laptops, there's still some type of management that's going on from Colony, the departments in Colony. And so Citrix would be able to come into play with that and be able to help whoever is doing the management on Colony side to manage it more easily. Whether it's rules on certain apps that you can use or certain different activities you can do on your laptop, that's the kind of thing that would need to be managed and that we're helping with. And so specifically, my role is on the site reliability engineering team. And what that means is my team is responsible for making sure the SEM, which is the endpoint management service, is reliable and stays available for our customers. And so I'm writing code each day that helps us monitor the service better and helps us automate certain tasks that we have to work on. And as I'm going on this, if anyone has any questions, feel free to raise your hand and I'll just continue. So I'll go back to why I chose computer science now. So in 9th grade, I actually wanted to be an accountant. It wasn't very good reasoning, but I was really good at math and I didn't really know the different fields that you could go in for math. And then my mom was an accountant as well. So I was just like, sure, let me be an accountant. But then in 10th grade, I took a computer hardware networking course with Mr. Casey. I don't know if you guys know him, but he's a great teacher. And that course changed my whole path after that, because like I knew the basics about computers that like we generally know, just, you know, using it, Microsoft Word, going on Facebook or whatever it is. And in that class, I learned about like how a computer actually works. So like the hardware on the inside, and then a lot of the communication that happens so that you can access things on the internet and stuff like that. And my mind was blown because I just never even thought about what is actually happening. And when you learn about it, you realize there's so much, and you realize how much work was put in from different people to make all of this possible. And it looks really seamless to us because we're just, you know, kind of using it. And then when you see all of the steps that it took, it'll make you appreciate it more, I guess. But then in junior and senior year of high school, I took more courses with Mr. Casey, and that kind of just strengthened my desire to want to work with computers. And at the time, I really just knew about the hardware and networking side about computers, but I didn't really know what computer science was. But going into Stony Brook, I saw that there was a computer science major, and I was like, okay, I'll take that. And when I got there is when I realized how broad computer science really is, because it's not just the hardware networking. It's a lot of like what you think about, which is the programming to it, but there's so much more to it. And it's definitely a field that allows you to do a lot, because even if you don't want to be a programmer, you can do something else that's computer related. And you don't have to work at a company like Google or to work specifically on tech, but you could work in like the finance industry or even the sports industry, because really every industry needs computer scientists. So, and then, so moving on from there, I decided to do my master's in computer science because for me, it made sense. I graduated early from my undergrad, so I knew I had this extra time that I could spend in school. And then there was also electives and research experience that I wanted, which I didn't get a chance to do during my undergrad because I was doing a lot of different activities. I was on the track team, multiple clubs, and I was working. So I figured this would be a really cool opportunity to take more of those elective courses and to get that research experience that I didn't get to do. And then the master's program was a year and a half. So I was like, it's not that long. I might as well just kind of continue on and get this chance while I have it, you know. And some of the really cool electives were some of the terms you may have heard of, like machine learning and AI. And there was a lot of really cool classes and a lot of awesome opportunities I was able to take care of in that time. And I was also a TA in that time, which was an awesome experience because it makes you, just being able to teach something you learn makes you realize that there's, well, one, you can it teaches you to communicate your thoughts better, which in any field is really important, even in tech. And also it kind of made me step back and try to remember those basics and things that I learned when I first started, because those were the courses that I was teaching at the time. And then my research was a really cool opportunity, and it was a combination of two fields, and I got to work with two professors that I learned from during my time there. And the concept was, it was an intersection between something called subgraph isomorphism and then another concept called skyline computations. And so the subgraph isomorphism part, it's actually a math term, And it's related to finding two graphs or networks that match. And a match can be based off of like any configuration that you're thinking about. So for example, say I want to find a group of 4 Wikipedia articles about politics, right? So I just defined what I'm looking for. And so I'm going to try to find a group of 4 articles that meet that match. And then this is a simple, it's a simple request, a simple configuration. But then the problem in that is that there could be hundreds of thousands of matches of a group of 4, right? So then the next part, called skyline computation, comes into play so that you can find the best match. And so the best match would be also defined however you want it. So let's say I call the best match as a group of 4 where the sum of views, because Wikipedia articles get views, so the sum of views is the highest, and at the same time the difference between their dates is the smallest. So I don't want the articles to have been created too far apart. And so what our project was working on was how to make this process more efficient. Because the first thing that may come into your mind is find all of these matches and then to sort them. But the thing to notice is that wouldn't be an efficient process because, as I mentioned, there could be hundreds of thousands of matches. And although computers are very quick, they still have their limitations. So that was the kind of thing we're working on. And it was very relevant, and it could be used in different fields. It could be used by researchers who are trying to find papers to use for their own research. It could be used by biologists trying to find a close matching synthetic solution to a compound that they already have seen. It could be used by an IT department trying to pinpoint other places in their network that could be vulnerable to an attack that recently happened. So it was really cool to work on a project that could be applied in multiple places. And then, so that was kind of like the summary of my master's experience. But throughout school, something that really made me enjoy this field of computer science was not just that I could learn in the classroom or learn in research, but the internship experiences that I had. So I had my first internship the summer after junior year of college, and that was an internship in Texas with Charles Schwab. If you don't know of Charles Schwab, they're a financial company, and they do like help people invest and keep track of their financial assets, that kind of thing. And then the next summer after that, I did another internship with BlackRock. They're also a financial company, and that was in New York City. And just off of those two, those were some really cool experiences that I definitely think was helpful in finishing, even just through finishing my first degree, because when you get to do an internship, you get to work with people from different schools. So they have they're from different schools, but you can see where their curriculum overlaps with yours. You could see that you're learning just the same things that they are, or maybe you learned something that they didn't learn. But it was really cool because like for my Charles Schwab internship, the other two of the people on my team they went to Texas A&M. And that's a really top program for computer science. And I could see that our curriculums were the same. So it kind of just reinforced the idea that, I mean, you can go to a SUNY school, which has, I'll say Stoney Brook's computer science program is amazing. So if you do want to study computer science, and if you want to stay in New York or whatever your reason it is, you would be in good hands with Stoney Brook. we actually had a professor there. His name is Professor Steven Skeena, and he is a very well-known professor. He's written textbooks that are used by people all over the world, actually, when they're preparing for interviews with top companies like Google. So that's a really good opportunity if you can get them. And so yeah, those internship experiences I loved. And then, as I mentioned, I started full-time at Centrix. So getting the chance to get an internship before starting full-time, you know, I just kind of got a glimpse of like how it is to work professionally in the work environment. And it's different because when you're doing an assignment for class, I mean, I guess the concept of being a student is not always going to match the concept of being an employee and having you know, different requirements from on the company side. I don't know if I explained that well, but it's definitely good to, you know, see how what you learn in the classroom translates to a company. Okay. And then I'll add, so by no means am I saying that the like the salary should be the biggest motivator, because I had multiple late nights trying to get through assignments and stuff like that. And like I mentioned earlier, I love computer science, so that was my biggest motivator. Just being able to learn there's so much to learn, and that was my biggest motivator, because I always wanted to keep on learning because the field is just so big. But I will mention that there is a good financial return from learning, getting a degree in computer science or learning anything computer science related. The amount that you'll get in an internship is actually usually the same amount that you would get if you're working full time, but obviously you're working within like 3 months or 2 months instead of, you know, a full-time employee. What I was making at Charles Schwab this was in Texas, and they offered $48 an hour, which that was like, before that I was working at Chipotle over the summer, and I had an on-campus job, and like that was more than double what I was making before that. So it was definitely nice to get that, and it kind of made you realize that all your hard work, you know, it's going to be rewarded when you finally get a job. And then at BlackRock, I was making $52 an hour. And that was in New York City. And once again, that was actually the exact same amount that the full-time employees were making, but just we were making it for a shorter amount of time. And you'll definitely find that there's a lot of people who come out of college making 100,000 or more right away. And on top of that, a lot of these companies usually do offer extra things on the side, like stock bonuses or just random bonuses at certain points. And these kind of things kind of make up the full financial package, which is, it varies by company, but generally it's the same kind of breakdown that you can see. So a salary plus stock bonuses plus different bonuses that are just like cash as well. So yeah, and then I'll just end this part by saying that it's something I mentioned before, but computer science is very broad. It's not just programming at all. I work with people who are not programming. Actually, there are people on my team directly who don't really have programming experience, but we're all working towards the same goal. And there's a role called a technical project manager or product manager that has a technical background, has that experience with like goals for a product, but at the same time, they're not programming their entire day. In fact, they may not do any programming at all. And there's a role called a quality engineer, which is kind of what they're trying to do is just make sure the product meets the standards, whether it's company standards that are defined or national standards in terms of laws and things like that, or even international standards, because most companies, well, I shouldn't say most, but a lot of companies will have customers that are in different parts of the world, like in Europe. And so we still have to follow Europe's laws if our product is going to work for Europe customers or European customers. So just saying this to mention that even if you don't like programming, or if you don't necessarily want to work on a certain part in computer science, there's a lot that you can do with a degree, and there's a lot of places it can take you. So yeah, is there any questions for me?
Who's got a question? I'm just going to make a quick comment, Ronke.
Okay.
That $100,000 salary figure a year as your teacher of 22 years, teachers are I'm still not making that. So just so you know, you're doing extremely well.
Yeah.
Good for you. Good for you.
Thank you.
Okay. Jason, is that Jason or Grace that has her hand raised? Is that Grace?
Grace, yeah.
Okay, go ahead, Grace.
So I know you mentioned some computer classes with Mr. Casey.
Mm-hmm.
And Miss Famoso, when she told us about it, she said that I think did you take one with Miss E or no?
I didn't actually, but I did remember her because that department, they're a tight-knit community, so. Okay. Yeah.
And I think, because the courses you took, Ronke, when you were at Colony, were they focused more on the hardware and networking end?
Yes, yeah, they were.
So if you wanted to take a programming course, Grace, Miss Eicholzer is the one who teaches the current computer programming class.
Yeah, I'm in it. So she mentioned that there would be the guest speaker, and she said that she thought she had you as a student.
Oh no,
that's why I asked.
There was I don't know if it was like a full week or maybe it was just a day where she did teach us like for one day. I don't know if Mr. Casey was out or if they just kind of wanted to get us that programming experience. I don't recall, but yeah, I did at least meet her for sure.
Did you do the hour of code, Ronke, when you were at the high school?
Actually, oh yes, I did. Yeah, I remember that. That was cool.
Yeah, so what we did back when Ronke was a student, I think many of you have probably heard of the Hour of Code, right? It's been an international initiative now for, I want to say 10 years. But we started off really strong, and we were doing it after school. And I know Miss Eicholzer always did a big group of kids with the Hour of Code at one point. So maybe she even had you at that. If you had signed up, she might have been in your room, kind of leading you.
Yeah, I think that was. That's true.
Selma, go for it.
So I think it's commonplace to hear about prejudice in STEM, especially computer science, against women. So what has been have you experienced any sort of discrimination or prejudice?
Yeah, good question. So I'm sure you know, but in case other people didn't know, we just had International Women's Day in March, I want to say 8th, but Centrix, I feel like, is an amazing company on multiple levels. We did have an event for International Women's Day, and I'm a part of multiple women groups. We have like multiple groups for different reasons, and they're called employee resource groups. And so I put myself in these groups so, I can get this networking experience with other women and to hear about other women's experience at Centrix as well. And I personally have not at such, I mean, yeah, I just started in August, but I haven't had any bad experiences. And I'm actually, there's 4 people on my direct team, and 2 of us are women. So it's actually, you know, that's not something that's, it's not always like that 50-50 split in many places. But my team directly, I can say, you know, we have that, you know, mix of, you know, trying to get people from many diverse backgrounds. And it's not something that I worry about when I'm working, because there's even outside of my team, but in working on the same product, there's multiple women leaders that I get to work with and that I get to network with as well. And I definitely see Centrix as, you know, a great workplace in that case. But in terms of, you know, the general atmosphere, I would say, there's definitely, I mean, I'm sure you all know, there's definitely, women are the minority in tech. So there will be places where maybe you're the only woman on the team, or it could be you're the only woman in the room. And I think that is something that I kind of prepared myself for, even going, like, just starting this job. But thankfully, that hasn't been an issue for me, and I'm grateful for that.
That's a great answer, Ronke.
Thank you.
I think you're fortunate that you have that balance where you work, and that they're encouraging you. Did you find that experience even in college, that there were fewer women in your classes in major?
Yes, definitely. There was actually one class. There was only 12 people in this class, which for a SUNY class is very rare, because most of the classes are big. But this one class I took, it was an elective where there was only 12 of us, and I was the only woman in the class. And it was, you know, interesting, because even from my bigger classes, it was obvious that there were less women in the class. But just to have that experience where I was the only one, you know, it was, yeah, I don't know what to say, but it was, yeah, it happens. It does happen. Especially, I think, if you do go to a smaller school, it's probably more likely to happen. But in terms of every area of diversity, you'll get a lot more in public schools or SUNY schools.
Anyone else have some questions? I want to ask you, how did you choose, since you were a fairly recent graduate of Colony, wasn't that long ago? It feels like a while ago, but it wasn't. How did you decide where you wanted to go to college?
Yeah, so actually, for me, it was based heavily on track, because I was on the track team at Colony, and at the time I was like my senior year, I knew I did want to major in computer science, but I was more so looking at schools that I could run for and also do computer science. And it was between University of Massachusetts Lowell and then SUNY Albany. And I ended up going with I said SUNY, sorry, SUNY Stony Brook. And I ended up going with Stony Brook because that was like the better team for me. And then even though it wasn't my plan, it was the much better option, because as I mentioned, Stony Brook's computer science program is amazing. Great professors. They know how to teach. Like, the assignments are geared towards being able to not just complete assignments, but to really think. And it worked out great for me.
And then as a follow-up, how did you decide that, was it you wanted to come back home and that's why you landed at SUNY Albany? Because I'm sure you could have probably stayed at Stony Brook to do your master's, right?
Right. So I did actually, my first intention was to stay at Stony Brook. But after there was there was like an early program, or like a program so that you could finish it in 1 year instead of a year and a half. And I actually didn't get into that program for the shortened one. And so it would have been a year and a half at Stony Brook. But after contemplating with the cost, because Long Island is more expensive than Albany, so after thinking about the cost of it, I ended up deciding to come back here to UAlbany, because my parents still live here. So it would have been, I actually, both because my parents live here, so I wouldn't have to pay for housing. And then I ended up getting the TA position. So on top of not having to pay for housing, all of the money that I got for the TA position more than covered what I needed to pay for the tuition. So it was actually, it worked out financially. Yeah.
That's good to hear, because college is very expensive. So
yeah, it is.
And I know a lot of the students are thinking, okay, this is where I want to go, but realistically, finances always come into it too, because no one wants to pay student loans until they're 80 years old. You know, that's not, shouldn't be the plan.
Yeah, no, that's definitely on discussing on the financial side. That's why I also mentioned, for, you know, if you want to go to a public school or a SUNY school, well, I'll say for computer science, because it's a great program. Also, if you're thinking about studying like biology or going into med school, Stony Brook also has the hospital. So that is another great major at Stony Brook. But yeah, I think it probably just comes down to research and what you want. But I think I had the same mindset as a lot of high schoolers too, you know, thinking, you know, the brand name schools, because the name. But there are many public schools that are really good for determining for whichever major you wish to choose. And if you research and find, you know, the kind of opportunities you can have at the school, you'll find that you'll be more than okay at a public school as well. Yeah.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I think we're fortunate in New York. We have very good public colleges and universities here. So
exactly.
It's hard to tell what they're thinking when they don't have their cameras on. We don't know. So anyone have other questions? Ronke, what's the biggest adjustment you've had to make at going from being a student to work in the working world? I mean, this has been probably an odd transition because of COVID.
Yeah.
Right. Have you actually worked in the office yet, or are you just working? Have you just been working from home?
Yeah. So especially with COVID, it was one of my it added to my anxiety for starting a full-time job, because I thought, you know, it'd be harder to, you know, get used to my role and to meet with people and connect with people. And thankfully, because, you know, there's all these tools that, of course, the computer scientists worked on, it makes it a lot easier to, you know, connect with my teammates and with my manager. But I would say, though, the biggest, or I guess, mindset transition was having a manager, because when you're in school, whether it's high school or college, you know, you have your syllabus like planned out, and your assignments are planned out, and then it's kind of like on you to just, you know, do whatever it is you need to do. And then when working, it's like there's company goals and company objectives and different tasks that come in when you didn't plan for it. So it's kind of like just kind of taking whatever comes by, I guess, is what I'm trying to say. But, you know, with that manager, then I have a great relationship with my manager, but there's still that manager-employee relationship. So you have to be able to take direction and, take the objective or goal that it needs to be prioritized in that moment. Yeah.
As teachers, we try to give the kids that experience, but it doesn't always work. Because we do have to, you'll see, I think, kids, as you grow, that you are responsible for more and more of your own, obviously, right? So it's, but in a company, they are paying you to do what they want you to do. So you need to do it, period. And that is kind of like the end of the story.
It's true. Yeah, no, that's exactly it. And there's, especially like these times, a lot of people do get anxious, working and being afraid about losing their, losing their, whether it's their title or their job entirely. And I think, just statistically, STEM careers are more, well, I guess less people have lost their job if they were in a STEM career. I would especially, doctors and people working on medical things, they're more needed than ever. And then a lot of the other people I know who study computer science, they were okay with this. And then, I think in general, there's just that growing, continually growing need for innovation and, new solutions to problems. So I think STEM is usually a safer bet there.
I agree. Anyone? I don't see any hands being raised.
Yeah.
Ronke was an amazing track star at Colony. And I know her, some of them may know your sister. I don't know if they know Tola or not, but you guys are both top-notch students, top-notch runners. You had the entire package. So I know you were recruited very well for college, and as a teacher, it is wonderful to see that you are doing wonderful things now. It makes my heart grow. And I can tell you that when Selma made a nice little slide that we passed around to the faculty to say that you were going to come to talk, so they could announce it to their students in class that you were coming to STEM Club. I can't tell you how many emails I got from other teachers who are like, Ronke, we loved her. She is fantastic. So, you were a great student, obviously, and you had a great reputation amongst the faculty at the high school. We all remember you. And so it's great to have you come back and give back. And I don't know obviously you just started at Centrix, so I know you're not planning to leave there anytime soon. So yeah. You'll be in Albany for a while, I hope.
Yeah, so actually the Centrix office is in Fort Lauderdale, Florida. So when the offices reopen, I'm actually planning on moving to Florida this summer.
Yeah. Get your vaccine first, okay? That's all I'm going to say.
Right, that's actually my plan. So I'm hoping, because they say May 1st for adults, and I'm hoping, I can get that and then start the move. But I would have been in Florida at this point. That was the original plan, and then the offices are still mostly closed. So, but they're thinking like around September, October to reopen. So then I'll move.
Well, I'm going to wish you the best with your move. See, I didn't realize you were headed out, but that's great. But at least, you've got a great job. And I'm assuming they move you. Are they moving you?
Yeah. That's, it's actually very convenient. So with my package to start, there's a relocation bonus. So they gave it to me like back when, before they thought I was coming, but that was still just kind of waiting in my account, and then I'll be using that to move.
Yeah, that's really nice. That was when I graduated from RPI and got a job in engineering. That's what they did. They pay, if they want you to go somewhere, they will pay you to go. And
Right.
they hire the movers, they do the whole 9 yards for you. So it's easy.
Oh, and that's another thing with the internships too. They flew me down for the interviews and also gave me the money to go down there, because like I mentioned, Charles Schwab was in Texas. I had never been to Texas, and that was the money to move was convenient. And then New York City, they did actually give money for that, but New York City is only a few hours, so it was just kind of like the bus ride.
Yeah.
But that was, these companies or these fields usually do have the extra help with it there too. Yeah.
Well, it's a very lucrative field. If you like it, it's a good thing. But I think the mindset, you have to really like it, because not everybody likes computer science. I mean, that's just
exactly.
But yeah, I think it's great to point out it is not all programming. I think that is the misconception out there, that it's all programming and all you do is code all day. And that is
not true.
What else? How much of your job is coding?
So my exact position, I would say it's 50% is actually coding, because of the nature of my role. But a lot of other people that work on, like, I don't work on the main product, which I mentioned is the endpoint management. So those people are doing more so of the coding. But because I'm working on maintaining the product and keeping it reliable and available for the customers, the code that I write is towards that effort of helping us monitor it better. So it would be 50% for me. Yeah.
And then what do you do the other 50% of the time?
Yeah, so the other 50% is we actually rotate what we call on call. So that is keeping an eye out for when there are issues with the product. So it could be an infrastructure issue, like with the database or the machines that it's running on, or it could be an issue with the code and we start seeing errors coming in, that sort of thing. And so that 50% is being available and ready to react to those kind of situations.
And what kind of work day do you have? Is it like a 9 to 5 kind of thing?
Yeah, it is. Right now, they do give us that flexibility to work kind of whichever hours work for us. And I mean, I could like step out for 2 hours and then come back to work a little bit later in the day if I want to. I generally just choose to, start at 9, and then if I'm not sure exactly how it's going to be, since I haven't joined like in person, but I do think there is that flexibility because of the nature of the company, because our goal is to help people to work more flexibly. And so, I think there's no rigidness in terms of when and how you have to work. Yeah.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
I didn't know if you had like on-call hours, like if you had to work evenings ever or things like that.
Oh, sorry, what were you saying?
Well, I was just thinking like if you had on-call hours, for example, where you were working one evening a week or something like that on it, if that was part of it. But it sounds like it's more just the 9 to 5 or whatever hours work for you when you get your job done. It's fine.
Yeah. If we're on call, we do have, so how we actually do it is we're on call for like a 2-week range, and that's during the 9 to 6 hours. And so if we're on call, we do have to, be ready to work at those times. But yeah, otherwise, the other times we could really just do whatever we need to and get the work done.
Yeah, that sounds right.
Yeah. And then I was just going to add, so like from my time at Colony, honestly, Colony was a great school. There was so many classes and electives that I'm realizing a lot of other people I went to school with didn't get the chance to take. And at different activities and clubs like this that, I think when you meet other people at other schools or even older when you're working, you'll realize not everyone had these opportunities. And it's really cool that there is a STEM club and, the electives that I mentioned, like the computer hardware classes, those changed things. Like I said, for me, if I didn't take that class, I would have been still set on accounting, which, I mean, it could have been fine, but I think I picked the perfect field for myself. I can't imagine studying anything else now because it's just perfect for me. And taking the chance to try other electives and try other classes, it could really change things for you as well. And you may find that you may change what you had in mind for your major. I'm not sure of the grade breakdown of everyone here, but even if it's your well, maybe not senior year because you're almost done, but even if it's your junior year, you still have that time to see what other classes are available and other activities or clubs you may want to join.
We do have a lot. Considering this year was a tough year budget-wise and with COVID and everything, but I'm hearing good things moving into next year, that things may be a little bit more, we might have more of those opportunities back. So fingers crossed that's the case.
Yeah, I hope so.
Are there anyone? Well, Ronke. Oh, Tyler's got a question. There he is.
Hi, I don't have a question. I just wanted to say thank you for coming on behalf of the STEM Club. We do appreciate it. Yeah, that was all.
Yeah, I'm honestly really glad to be here. And Tyler, I think we're actually follow each other on LinkedIn.
Yeah.
So yeah. And then I'll add to that if Ms. Mimosa has my email. If anyone does have any other questions, feel free to email me and I'll respond. I'm really good at responding to emails. And I'm glad I was able to share. I love talking about computer science and then I think it's the journey of it. I enjoyed my experiences and my internships, and if it can help motivate anyone, not just specifically to computer science, but into STEM fields, I'm glad to do that.
You're an inspiration, Ronke. Thank you. Thank you. You really are.
Thank you.
All right, folks. Well, thank you so much for coming. Thank you, Ronke. I really appreciate it. I just want to let everybody know we do have another meeting next week. We're on a roll. It's like crazy. We're meeting every week. We're on next week, 6 o'clock. George Hassel will be joining us from Siena College. He is, his title is Teaching Professor of Physics and Astronomy. And I know him as George. I don't know if he goes by Mr. Hassel. I know he's not Dr. Hassel, but he runs the observatory over at Siena College, which does a lot of the star gazing and astronomy programs that they do in the community. So if you have interest in astronomy, he is a great fellow to talk to. He'll be here next week. And I know he also talks about and helps out with the physics courses at Siena in terms of setting them up with labs and things like that. I was in a workshop last summer, 2 workshops through Siena, and he was getting us all equipment to run experiments at home, and it's kind of crazy. But we were supposed to be on campus, and then, of course, things didn't happen on campus because of COVID. So he was running around the capital region, dropping things off at our house and loaning it to us. And but anyway, so any of you have an interest in physics or astronomy, Siena, or want to just know about life at Siena, come to our presentation next Thursday, 6 o'clock. And we'll put a link up in the classroom, the Google Classroom, for that next week. Okay. Well, Ronke, again, thank you so much.
Glad to be here. Have a good night, everyone.
It was so nice, and I wish you the best on your move, and I hope we can keep in touch, okay?
Okay, yes.
Thank you.
All right.
Okay,
Bye.
bye-bye.